Howdy, I'm Tim Ziegler. I have worked with Casper Stockham for the last 4 years after meeting him at a leadership program of the Rockies event at the Governor's Mansion in Denver. And in meeting him, I decided that I was going to help support his congressional campaign for CD1. This was in 2015, and we've known each other since. I've worked with him on a daily basis for his congressional runs in CD1 and have gotten to know the man in a very detailed way. And I'm going to ask him some questions in an interview here that's going to last about 20 minutes, and we're going to hopefully reach some understanding of who Casper is on a different level than a typical reporter would ask. None of this has been pre-scheduled. Casper doesn't know what I'm going to ask him. And I did radio for about 5 years in the early 2000s. So I've interviewed a lot of political pundits and politicians, and hopefully I can bring that experience to bear for you, the listener. Thank you. Casper Stockham, you're now running for Congressional District 6 in Colorado.
Yes, sir.
After having run twice for Congressional District 1 against Diana DeGette. Your new opponent is Jason Crow, the recent incumbent, who first won election in 2018, having beaten Mike Kaufman after Mike Kaufman's 10 years of being in CD6. Can you tell me why the transition? Why the transition?
Yeah, so thank you, Tim, for asking that question. The transition was actually a fairly easy decision because I actually live in CD6. I've lived here for over 16 years. Now, I also have lived in other parts of the city. I've lived in Montbello, I've lived in Glendale, and those are both in Denver. And I ran in Denver because I wanted to make a difference. I was hoping to bring a conservative message and Republican values and message into that community. The challenge is the party really wasn't all that supportive of my effort in those races. But coming out of those races, I hold the record for the most votes by a Republican in that area, in the Denver area. So it was an easy transition to basically come home and run on my home turf against someone I feel who has just been horrible when it comes to representing all of the people in Aurora. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to run against Jason Crow.
Jason Crow is a former Army Ranger and touts that extensively in his Twitter feed, his Facebook page, his congressional website, and his personal website. And does that Army Ranger status intimidate you at all?
Actually, no. It's kind of sad in a way because I'm expecting Army Ranger or someone who has served in the military. Forget about the branch of service. When you step up and you serve, you take an oath of office, and I take my oath of office very seriously. Even though I've been out of the service since the early 90s, I still have a code of honor and ethics that I maintain. So even though he is a former Army Ranger, I am not seeing anything that he's doing other than jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. We'll talk about that later. But I haven't seen anything he's done serving in Congress that would represent the oath of office that we all took to defend our country. He is not doing anything that represents the defense of our nation.
Can you give me an example?
Oh, absolutely. I can probably give you 10 or 15 examples. So one of the things he did recently, he was so proud of this. He went on the morning news here, and he was so proud of the fact that him and some other Congress people got together, and they thought it was a really great idea for the U.S. military to have a hotline to the Iranian military so that we can squash any tensions or whatever between the two countries. Now, the problem with that is it sounds good in theory, but the problem is the U.S. is set up with a chain of command, and that chain of command starts at the president. It starts at Donald Trump, not the military. We specifically do not have the military making those kind of decisions because in the past, other countries in history, has shown that, you know, sometimes the military gets a little excited or whatever, and they do things that are not good for the country. So anyway, so we have the civilian oversight of the military for a reason. So what he suggested, and he was so excited about, in my opinion, borders on treason.
Wow, that's a very strong statement. Would this be a violation of the renowned Hatch Act?
It would. It would. I mean, there's so many things that it goes against, and I'm just astounded that no one has called him on it. Of course, the news media just loved it. You know, thought it was a great idea. And I'm even sad that the Republican Party hasn't said something about it. You know, the biggest challenge that we have, we as candidates running on a Republican ticket, is that we try to play fair, and the other side does not. So had I made a statement like that, there would have been news. You know, there would have been news people calling me and you know, trying to trip me up on stuff. I mean, it would have been an all-out attack by the Democrat Party, my opponent, the news media, and everybody else. But we typically just don't. You know, we don't engage like that, and we're not fighting the correct fight to actually win.
The congressional seat he holds, can you tell me about CD6?
Yeah. So CD6 is a very diverse area because it encompasses all of Aurora. It encompasses Commerce City, which is heavily Latino. And then it also encompasses Highlands Ranch, which is heavily suburban mom, you know, white conservative suburbs. So it's a very diverse city. We have hundreds of ethnicities represented here in Aurora. We have a huge immigrant population from Africa, from all the different nations. We have a huge Asian American population here in Aurora, so it's very diverse. And nowadays, the Republican numbers are not high enough for any Republican to win in a district this size or in a state race without some type of outreach or some kind of appeal to the unaffiliated voters and the soft Democrats, because we just don't have the numbers to win anymore.
Does Jason's role in CD6 has his contention? His election with Mike Kaufman was extraordinarily competitive. It's the most competitive district in Colorado, from what I've read. And your different background, do you believe that gives you an advantage that other Republicans are certainly not going to have?
Yeah, you know, I don't want to sound conceited in this answer, but I really don't see any other Republican that can even come close to being able to take Jason Corral, who has experience in the community, who's been working in the community for the past 8 to 10 years. I have connections in the community, even though I don't decrease my values when I go in. In other words, I don't pretend I'm a Democrat. Okay, I go in as a conservative, I go in as a Christian, and I go in and lift up my sleeves and help. So that is being seen by a lot of folks in the community, and they pull me aside because they don't say it. They don't dare say it in public, but they pull me aside and say, you know, we appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate you not going away. And that's something that really just irritates me about most politicians. After they run their race, and if they lose, they go away. Well, when I lost those 2 races in Denver, I didn't pack my bags and leave. I stayed in the community. You know, I have workshops I do on a pretty consistent basis. I teach youth how to get a job, keep a job, and excel at that job. I teach others, if they want to start a business, I teach them how to do that. In fact, less than 2 weeks ago, I held a workshop at a homeless shelter. We had a 4-hour workshop at a homeless shelter. This is the Saturday after I announced I was running for Congress, so I was currently a candidate when I did that workshop.
But what you're saying is that you're not doing the workshop because you're the candidate. You're doing the workshop because that's what's needed.
That's what's needed, and that's what I've been doing. So I didn't stop doing what I had been doing because I'm a candidate. I continued on, and I do this all the time. And I will continue to do those kind of things even as I'm running for office because, again, win or lose, the work still needs to get done. And that's why I'm actually running, because I am not impressed or happy or content with politics as usual, to where these politicians promise and deliver absolutely nothing. And Jason Crow, his biggest thing is attacking the ICE facilities. Like this is going to do something to empower the community. It's not going to empower anybody other than Jason Crow and his special interest groups and stuff. So no, I am not impressed. So he, as far as I'm concerned, is one and done.
What are the three biggest things that separate you from Jason Crow? What are the three biggest issues?
Well, let's see. So one issue off the top of my head is the fact that I actually do stuff and he talks about stuff. I'm actually working to empower the community, not keep them under my thumb or keep them under my control. At the end of the day, Tim, it comes down to power and control, and Jason is a typical example. He's a new face on a very old system. There's nothing new about what he does. He's a new face for sure. He's an Army Ranger. I give him props for that. I'm sure he's a great family man, all that kind of good stuff. But at the end of the day, he is not doing anything different than the typical progressive liberal playbook. And it's just, deny anything that Trump, all the good that Trump is doing. The black unemployment rate is the lowest in history. Hispanic unemployment rate, same thing. Women's unemployment rate, same thing. I mean, every measurable matrix that you can look at shows that President Trump has been doing a phenomenal job as president, and he's been helping the black and Hispanic community. Another thing he's done is his criminal justice reform. Now, this is something you would think that the Democrats would be all over, but they shied away from it because Trump was on it. And I am disappointed that more Republicans didn't get excited about criminal justice reform because it is a winning message in the community. So Trump's First Step Act and Second Chance Act, and now the Veterans, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a new Veterans Initiative that he put in place. Those things are helping a lot of black and Hispanic folks in the community.
So you're saying that as a Republican, if elected to Congress, you're going to support President Trump's initiatives?
Oh, 110%. I don't always support his rhetoric and his tweets and stuff like that, but I love what he's doing, and, I'm about doing. I'm tired of the talking. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the finger pointing. When it comes to these ICE facilities, J. Crow, and I call him J. Crow for short, he has, those ICE facilities and the private detention centers, those were put in place by the swamp, okay, put in place by Democrats, mainly started with Bill Clinton with his 3 strikes you're out. They had to start locking up a whole bunch of folks, and they needed more facilities to do that. So private prison system popped up, and they were locking up folks left and right. So they put the system in place, and now they're going to protest their system. So I'm like, dude, instead of protesting it, fix it. You created it, fix it.
It seems to be a common thread among politicians to create a problem and then offer a solution to the problem they created.
Yeah, exactly.
In 2016, President Trump lost Colorado to Hillary Clinton. In 2018, Colorado was a blue wave, blue tsunami, in fact, and removing all statewide office holders from the Republican Party, and a tremendous failure of the Republican Party on an apocalyptic level. I mean, there is discussion within the Republican Party as to whether or not they can recover from the 2018 debacle.
Yeah. How
do you anticipate overcoming that blue tsunami?
Yeah, so it's not going to be easy for sure. Myself, Derek Wilburn, Sherry Gibson, a lot of us, including yourself, we've been telling the party for a long time, years, many years, that this was coming. So unfortunately, I wasn't surprised by it. I was hoping we had some more time. So it's going to be a tough road, but I can tell you that it can be overcome, but we have to get busy now. In fact, we're 6 months behind the power curve. We should be out. Outreach should be our number one thing that we're doing. It should be outreach. It should be reaching to the Black and Hispanic communities like nobody's business. It should be everywhere you turn, at every Black event, every Hispanic event, every celebration. You should see Republicans everywhere you turn. That's all they should see is Republicans, Republicans, Republicans. Now, it sounds like it may be pandering or whatever, but I'm telling you, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that level of engagement for the Republican Party to win. So what I'm going to do as a candidate, because I've shared my thoughts and concerns with the party, and they are moving. They're talking a good game and so forth, but they're not moving fast enough from my concern. So my campaign will be training up 100 volunteers. I've got the training already set up. It's a 4-hour workshop. We're going to put all of our volunteers through it and put my team through it, which is I have a team now for the campaign. Put them through it first, and then we're going to start training up volunteers, and then we're going to start hitting the streets big time, starting this summer, all the way through the winter, and then into 2020. So the momentum that we have from now until December hopefully will carry us into the assembly with a lot of volunteers, a lot of excitement, and then hopefully it win out of the assembly into the primary, because I'm quite sure there's going to be some other candidates running for this seat. And then with a successful primary win, we will be in perfect position to take on Jay Crow in the general and win that race as well.
Fundraising is considered to be the mother's milk of a congressional campaign. And the matrix states that a candidate must spend over 50% of his time fundraising, his or her time fundraising. How is fundraising going for Casper for CD6?
Well, fundraising never goes as well as anyone would want. We have raised funds and we continue to raise funds, but we need a lot more. We need a lot more support. We need a lot more folks on board. And that is, that's my responsibility. So I make fundraising calls every day. I make 5 to 10 calls every day. I've got team members now who will be also making those calls, and we're going to be calling to the base, of course, and I'm looking for support. We're going to be reaching out to the folks that we know have a little bit of change, and it's not going to hurt them to max out to the campaign. They won't even feel it. So we're going to be reaching out to those folks as well, because we do need some resources to do to put my plan in action. And I have a 5-point plan. I'm not going to go into the details of the plan, but I'm telling you, I have a 5-point plan to actually take this district back. But it is going to take a lot of fundraising and a lot of help from folks who typically who have maybe sat on the sideline and just hoped for the best. Well, hope and change is over. It's time to get busy. It's time to roll up the sleeves and get busy.
CD6 is famously the background of Tom Tancredo and immigration reform, immigration border control. Mike Hoffman, in fact, learned to speak Spanish in order to speak more effectively in a form of outreach. When he was the 10-year representative of CD6, the district changed dramatically in 2010 because of the census and the acquisition of Colorado's 7th Congressional District, and the district was changed, some would say gerrymandered. How do you view the issue of immigration in relation to Congressional District 6 in Colorado?
So the Hispanic population is a very important population to reach and to speak to directly. I do not speak Spanish right now. I speak conversational French. But I have to tell you, I am starting slowly right now, but I'm starting to learn Spanish. I think it's going to be very important. And not to pander to anyone, just to have that as one of the one of the things that our campaign can do. Now, with that said, I have Spanish-speaking people on my campaign as we speak. Some of them are Anglo, and we're also bringing on some Hispanic team members working on that as well. So by the time our team launches here in another 2 weeks, the CD6 will see a very diverse team. We have people of my age. I'm at level 58, so we have people at my age. We have people who are white, people who are black. We have female members of the team, and we have some very young under millennials. I can't remember what that generation is called, but they're just under the millennial generation. So we have some of those folks as well, because we intend to be a force that will show not just the voting base, but show CD6 that we are the team that will make it happen.
You're 58. You're a black man. You grew up in America in the 1960s and 1970s. How has being a black man in America changed in your lifetime?
Well, when I started out, I grew up in a very progressive liberal household. So by the time I was 17, I hated all things Republican and most things white. And I can't even tell you why that was. It was just, just normal conversation. It wasn't so much an indoctrination. It was just, that's just how it was. My dad was a politician. I can remember him running for different offices, and I can remember standing on the street corner with T-shirts and signs waving and so forth. It was a very interesting time, but I can't say I was enjoying it at all. In fact, it left such a bad taste in my mouth, if you will. I really wanted nothing to do with politics. I did not want to be like my dad, because he was always angry. He was always fighting the man, fighting this and fighting that. And it's funny, because I look back on it now, and I know exactly who he was fighting, because I'm fighting some of those same rascals, in the inner city. And it's not Republicans, because Republicans are not in the inner city. My dad didn't fight Republicans. He fought racist, prejudiced Democrats. So he was on the Board of Education. He was on City Council. He ran for Congress and ran for Senate. And I can remember one time we would always take family vacations down to Georgia, to Andersonville, Georgia. So when Jimmy Carter was running, we had to go to Plains, Georgia, to see Jimmy Carter's house. And I remember driving there. We got there, and of course by that time, Secret Service had his whole block blocked off. Unless you were a neighbor or somebody who had access, you couldn't even go into his neighborhood. So we could see the house, from, we looked down the block, you could see the house, but of course, he wasn't there or whatever. But I can remember doing all those kind of things and saying, this whole politics thing to me is just stupid. And I said, there's no way I want to be involved with that. And that really formed my opinion about politics for a long time. So I was conservative, super conservative, but I rarely voted because I didn't see anyone worth voting for. In fact, I just posted on Facebook because Ross Perot died today, and he was one of the first people I was excited to vote for. And of course, he was a spoiler that helped Clinton get elected, because he took votes away from Bush. But Bush wasn't conservative enough for me, and Ross was. So,
how does a child of a Democrat politician turn into an extraordinarily conservative, not just voter, not just conservative background, but conservative politician?
Well, I was never a Democrat. If you're talking about me, I was never a Democrat. I grew up in that environment, okay, but I was never a Democrat. I never. The only thing close to a voting Democrat was a vote for Ross Perot. And like I said, he was conservative. That's why I voted for him. I was never wrapped up in the Democrat-Republican talking points or anything else. I was very conservative, and I was Christian, and that was the only thing that mattered to me. So I was never a Democrat, and I never liked the way that system all shook out. But when I started to register, the first time I ever registered for a party was for the Republican Party.
Casper, we're almost out of time. I'm wondering, is there any question that you need to answer that I haven't asked? I'll give you a couple minutes and tell people how to get in touch with you, how to reach your campaign.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of fill in the blanks on these kind of interviews. So I'm just happy to be able to share some things that normally don't get shared when I do media interviews, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity. We need volunteers. We're looking for team members still for the campaign. We're looking for volunteers for sure in CD6. And they can go to Casper for Colorado. It's the word for, F-O-R, Colorado.com. They can go there. They can donate, of course, to the campaign. They can volunteer. They can reach out to us. We have a very, very, I'm excited about the team, I tell you, and I think the supporters in CD6 will be excited as well about the team once they see this team shake out. It's early, and I got in race early for a reason. We have a big hill to climb, and we need to get some momentum now. That's why we'll have momentum going into the assembly. But we'll have over 6 months or so momentum going into that. I believe we're going to come out of that victorious, headed into the primary, and I think that's going to carry us through the primary to a win, and then go up against Jay Crow in the general. And I cannot think of a better person to run against than Jay Crow. So I'm excited about all of it. I'm going to have fun along the way, and it's just going to be a good time. And at the end of the day, it's about what the community needs. It's about empowering the community. So my campaign is about 3 things: empowering the family, empowering the community, and empowering our future. And if we stay focused on those things, we will be victorious come November 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, Casper Stockham, thank you for your time today. Best of luck, and I hope the campaign goes well.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.